everybody, and welcome into another edition of The Rundown. I am Kendall Smith alongside of Wes Mitchell, not Colin Taylor. I wanted to say Colin West. And we are here to recap South Carolina's Week 8 loss to Texas A&M, a 44-14 final score. And Wes, not the game that the Gamecocks were looking for at all yesterday. We've got to start with the obvious here. At the half, South Carolina had 11 total yards on offense. They had negative 10 rushing yards in 0 third down conversions. They didn't even have a third down conversion until about 9 minutes remained in the fourth quarter. So in the bye week, obviously South Carolina not playing this weekend, what do you do to try to improve this offense that has just been disastrous throughout the season?
Yeah, I thought I don't know, that might have been rock bottom last night. Unable obviously on defense to get off the field on third downs, but then unable to stay on the field on offense on third downs. And to me, the third down numbers, it's a storyline obviously, but it's kind of a symptom as opposed to being the greater issue. To me, the greater issue is just overall execution on offense. I think they weren't able to execute on third down. A good portion of the reason for that is that they didn't execute on first down. They didn't execute on second down. You look at Texas A&M for an example. It's an easy example. When their offense is on the field, they're getting positive yards on first down, positive yards on second down. So then they're getting into 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3, and then you have your entire playbook at your disposal. South Carolina, I mean, it seemed like it was 2nd and 12, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 11. It seemed like it was 3rd and long pretty much all night long. When you have that situation against a really good defensive front, which A&M just, I felt like, dominated South Carolina up front as far as when their defense is on the field, South Carolina's offense is on the field. The sad thing from a South Carolina perspective is it was kind of more of the same, Kendall. I mean, at some point, this is 8 games in. At some point, you kind of are what you are. Now, I'm sure they will try to continue to tweak. If you're the staff, you can't quit. You can't be like, well, the season's almost over. This just is what it is. They have to keep working. From our perspective, though, how much more can you do? I think fans like to say, well, it's play calling. That's like the big that's the word everybody uses. To me, though, it even goes beyond that. It's not really necessarily about on-game, in-game play calling. It's more about the offense, to me, just feels discombobulated. You have guys running into the snap. You have guys running into each other. All year long, you've had pre-snap issues. The offense just does not feel fluid, does not feel like there's rhythm, and it does not feel like the guys are comfortable. So to me, that goes beyond play calling. To me, that goes all the way back to what is your plan, what is your scheme, and are you teaching it in a way that the guys can get it? So you can have a complex offense, but you better have a simple way to call to where the guys get it. If the guys aren't getting it, if they're not comfortable, then you see what we have seen for most of the year.
And you talk about the discombobulation on offense. I even told you yesterday that high snap when Zeb was in the game and he wasn't even ready for it, and then it turns into a fumble. It's like those type of miscommunications are what ultimately lead to what we see in the final score for South Carolina. But a positive note for the Gamecocks actually came yesterday with Jason Brown. He had his opportunity to see some SEC play for what is really the first time this season. He got in for one play against the Georgia Bulldogs, but South Carolina finished with 185 total yards. 170 of those yards came from when Jason Brown was in the game. So we've got to talk about the obvious here. People thinking going forward, do you start Jason? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, let's try to have nuance with the conversation. I'm not saying, a lot of people will watch that and just say, it's got to be the quarterback. I'm not ready to go that far. I will say I want to see more of 15. I want to see what he can do. I think when you have quarterbacks, it's about gathering information about their ability to help your team, as quickly as possible. Because let's be honest, when quarterbacks don't play, they end up transferring. So you have in one hand you have Zeb Nolan, who has for the situation, he's stepped in, he's done phenomenal, he's helped South Carolina win a couple of games, but he has no years of eligibility left. You have 4 regular season games left. Jason Brown does have a year of eligibility after this. So I think you got to find out, is this guy a gamer? Is he a guy that maybe plays a little bit better in games than maybe he does in practice? He has been, the book has been that he will make some plays. The book has been that he can be turnover prone at times. We saw both of those things last night. Let's be honest. Let's give the full picture. But he did spark things. He did make some guys miss in the backfield running around, either running for first downs or keeping plays alive to throw the ball away or even deliver the ball down the field at times. So, I thought Jason, for just stepping in the moment, played pretty well. Now, also, just like you can't take what Zeb did in one drive against Vanderbilt, and we warned everybody, you can't extrapolate that and say he's going to go up and down the field against A&M going into that game. You can't really take what Jason Brown did late in the game. A&M's sending some subs in. They're probably, they're a little more relaxed. They know this game is over. So, yeah, it doesn't tell you the whole story. But I think we saw enough of Jason Brown to say, let's see more of Jason Brown. What do you have to lose at this point? I don't know if you start him. I don't know if you just say, hey, let's get him in at some point. But definitely, from my perspective, let's see some more 15 and see what happens, and maybe build a game plan around him that maybe fits his skill set.
And Coach Beamer saying after the game yesterday that he thought Jason Brown did a great job coming in the situation he was put in. Beamer was also talking about the issues with South Carolina, and he said everybody has a hand in these issues, not just the players, not just the coaches. For US, what do you think the biggest hand in these issues are? Is it the pro-style offense that South Carolina is running? Is it the play calling? Is it the coaching? Is it the players not executing? What's the biggest factor for you?
Yeah, I think I look at things in percentages. So if you sort of said, all right, these are all the issues, yes, everybody does probably have a hand in it, but there's probably a greater chunk of the sort of blame, with different guys than other people. So I think on the field, yes, to me, the offensive line, those guys have been sort of hated on all season long, but you do sort of have to point to that group as far as the on the field guys, as far as the actual team goes. But yeah, Marcus Satterfield is hearing the brunt of the criticism right now as far as the coaching staff goes. Ultimately, it is his offense, it is his scheme, it's his job to install it. I thought we had seen, I kept waiting on everything to click for this offense, and I thought I saw flashes at times earlier in the year where you said maybe next week, and it just has not happened to this point. So, yeah, it is percentages, it is everybody, but ultimately, to me, it does go back to Satterfield and this offense, and really, to me, it's more offensive scheme and plan and installation, teaching it, as opposed to necessarily play calling, which is just the play calling is like the buzzword everybody uses when an offense is not succeeding.
Right, and that's interesting. And also yesterday, something that was very interesting coming out of this offense, I hate to keep harping on it, but it obviously was the big talking point of the evening and will continue to be the talking point going forward. But Juju McDowell just had 3 touches last night for 8 yards, and then Jaheim Bell was just targeted once. So why do you think these players didn't get more opportunities last night, especially someone like Juju, who has shown earlier in the season he can be a spark plug for this offense?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the fact that you're not able to stay on the field as an offense. Like, when I don't have the total plays for the offense in front of me, certainly I think if you looked at the total plays in the first 3 quarters, like before the game was kind of over and Carolina was able to make some first downs and stuff, if you're not making first downs, I mean, golly, you had what, any 3, so let's say you go 3 and out, right? You have 3 plays in that 3 and out sequence. And I would say sometimes 2 out of the 3 were Zeb dropping back, Zeb getting pressured, and then Zeb either getting sacked or sort of throwing the ball while pressured, and it's an incomplete pass. So then the one of the 3 was probably a handoff, and you're rotating guys. So sometimes that handoff is to Juju, sometimes that handoff is to Zaquandre, sometimes it's to Marshawn Lloyd, and sometimes it's to Kevin Harris, who's been banged up but played a little bit as well. So when your limited snaps get distributed between multiple running backs. And then when you're struggling to get the football out because of the pass rush, your receivers and tight ends aren't going to play a big factor in the passing game either. So I think in that case, I don't know necessarily if I put it on the coaches for like not getting them the ball, as in like I think they were trying. I'm sure they called some plays that were designed to get them the ball. But when you just can't stay on the field, like it is imperative that you can have a 6, 7, 8, 9 play drive, stay on the field, make some first downs. Then you spread the ball around to everybody. Look at Texas A&M. They got 2 running backs that had over 100 yards. Then they put their third guy in. He's busting off runs at the end. Their tight end is catching, like every catch he had felt like was for a touchdown. So, I mean, when you're spreading the ball around, you're making first downs, you just have all these opportunities to get the ball to different people. When I mean, we talked about it, the meme of Zeb just laying there after getting hit, that summed up the night for me. When your quarterback is just dropping back and getting pressured, I mean, it was instant several times. The ball's getting snapped over his head. Your opportunities to get the ball to all of these playmakers we talk about is, to me, it's just very limited.
And that's a great point, Wes. Now, before we get out of here, I have to ask, because we always want to try to end the shows on a high note. Can you give me one positive from last night's very trying, very tough game for South Carolina?
Oh, man. Well, so we were talking about Kai Kroger before we hit record. But you know what? The punt coverage team gave up a kickoff or a punt return for touchdown.
Yes.
So I don't know if I know that's not Kai's fault, but I don't know if I can go with that group either. I'll tell you what, let's say some of the young guys in general that got to play late in the game, or not even young guys. Jason Brown, not a young guy, but a guy that hasn't played. I did, going back to that, I thought Jason stepping in did some good things. South Carolina got some of their young linebackers on the field late. Debo Williams, Darrell Williams, Mo Kaba was in the game. I saw Dominique Hill in the game at cornerback. So you got some young guys involved. Trey Kenyon, the tight end, number 12, who has sort of been in the shadow of, Nick Muse, Jaheim Bell, all those guys. He catches a touchdown pass, had another catch in the game. He's quietly actually had a pretty solid season when he's been on the field. So I will say the guys that don't normally get to play a ton, getting an opportunity and going out there and taking advantage of it, there's something to be said for that for the future. And, they don't want to be in the game. They don't want to be in the game because they're down 44-0 or 44-7, obviously. But they took advantage of it nonetheless.
Well, speaking of the future, I think we should start a petition on Gamecock Central to never play Texas A&M again. It has been quite an interesting –
0 for 8.
Yeah, 0 for 8 in playing Texas A&M since South Carolina.
How does A&M even end up being the permanent opponent? Like, looking back at that,
I'm wondering.
Like, oh, let's link these two teams together when they've never played. That makes no sense. If you're South Carolina, you want Arkansas back as your permanent opponent.
South Carolina will get Arkansas next year. So looking forward to the future, like we talked about, hopefully better things on the horizon for this South Carolina team. Like you said, I think this week may have been rock bottom. I'm going to try to find some wood to knock on for that statement. But Wes, thank you for joining me on the rundown today, recapping South Carolina's Week 8 loss to Texas A&M. We will see you all back here later on in the week. It is a bye week for South Carolina, but that doesn't mean that Gamecock Central is stopping our coverage. Subscribe on GamecockCentral.com. We will see you soon and have a great ending to the weekend. Hopefully your NFL team. It wasn't it for college football this weekend.